But the funnest story is that how Google did not want to launch YouTube in India, which is roughly about 2 hours a week you're officially allowed to work on YouTube.
Wow.
And out of that came 1,000 crore business.
Wow. Shah Rukh Khan fighting for a pass.
China is where subsequent all Amir Khan films make most of their money outside of India.
I went from being the world's best father, words of my wife, to being the world's worst father, and the only difference was that she had filed for a divorce.
As they say, what doesn't break you makes you stronger.
Welcome everyone to episode 7 of IIM Ke Baad. It gives me great pleasure today to have Amit on this session with us. Amit and I, we were in the same section. We used to have 3 sections, section A, B and C. Amit and I, we were in the same section. And interestingly, in the first year of IIM Bangalore, they assigned us seats. So we couldn't change our seat throughout the first year. And interestingly, Amit was in the first row of the class and I was in the second last row of the class. So we seldom saw each other because there were 2 entrances. So Amit used to enter from the first entrance and I used to enter from the back entrance. So after 23 years or 24 years, I spoke to Amit like 2-3 weeks ago, asking him to come on to the show. And people who you speak to for 30 minutes and they suddenly gain a lot of respect in your eyes, and you're like, wow, this was this guy. So the thing that Amit said, and that gained a lot of respect as I got to talk to him for an hour or so a couple of weeks ago, was I got to know that he grew up in with very humble backgrounds. He grew up with parents who didn't pass high school. Correct me if I'm wrong, Amit, later, but that's what I remember from our conversation. And when I remember him at IIM Bangalore, he was so composed all the time. I could have never guessed looking at him that Amit had humble backgrounds. To me, when I remember back to our classroom, he was very well composed, very well dressed, very well spoken. And to hear that he comes from such humble backgrounds, he immediately gained respect. Beyond that, this guy has gone on to do some very interesting things. He went on to be the head of YouTube in India. I think that itself is a huge achievement. And from then on, he went on his own spiritual journey. He has given up the corporate sector to do things that are more closer to his heart. And like he shared with me, one of the things close to his heart is children. And he's done a lot of things for children, and he's faced personal challenges that he has very admirably been able to contextualize those challenges, understand them in a larger context. So welcome, Amit, and thank you for coming on to the show. Let me start with the first question. Tell us about your journey after IIM. What did you do once you left the campus in the year 2000, 24 years ago now?
So thank you so much, guys, for having me here. It's so lovely to see all of us together on this call, even though we chat a lot on WhatsApp groups, but it's not this cozy. And I saw the channel before me. Some very, very admirable people have gone in, so I'm in great company, obviously. Specifically about your question, and I think the roots of that answer is about a year before. So before we graduated, I was traveling to XLRI, and I don't know if you guys would remember, this was the year when super cyclone hit the state of Orissa, and there was massive chaos. So I'm traveling what would be my first paper presentation contest on microfinance in XLRI. I had never gone out to do inter-B school competitions till then, and I never went since. That was the only one I did. I'm going to Chennai, I catch a train, and the train is so late because of the super cyclone. The whole tracks have been ripped apart in Orissa, the divergence, that I missed the paper presentation contest. So I'm like, अब जा ही रहे तो मिलके आ जाते हैं, क्या है? I know some of my college juniors from St. Stephen's, and I'll say hi to them and come back. Because I had no idea that this was super cyclone, because back in the day, no smartphones, no internet, not that easy an access, right? So there were some things that something has happened. There was some tufan, I don't know, storm is what they were calling it. And rest of it we came to know later. So I arrived this place about a day late by my train, and because everybody got delayed who were coming from that direction, I guess. So I did get a chance, and judges were doing a staggered entry. Long story short, I make my presentation, and then I'm traveling back to Kolkata to catch my flight back to Bangalore. One way I was flying, my first flight ever. So a lot of firsts were happening. Super cyclone was happening, paper presentation. And I said, is there a way to get to Kolkata airport fast? They said, one of our judges is traveling. We'll try to get you in the same car. And this judge was the CEO of Friends of Women's World Banking. It's a microfinance arm of World Bank that works in India, based out of Ahmedabad. Vijay Ben, God bless her soul. And we just got chatting. She was a very senior lady, and we just spoke and spoke throughout the journey non-stop all the way to airport. And I remember keeping in touch with her and writing to her that, hey, I've got a pre-placement offer. I'm not taking that. I've got two Asian Paints. I have a couple of months before that. Can I do something for you? And she said, Amit, aa jao, and we cannot pay you MBA salaries, but we'll make it easy for you. I said, like, I'm a broke student, so at least pay for my stay. She said, that can be taken care of. So I go to IIM Ahmedabad, which is where I stay, and I spent a couple of months over there visiting these NGOs in Rajasthan, Kerala, interiors of Gujarat, making a presentation for the then Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha about microfinance sector, all of that, and classic IMB style night outs at an NGO which has never seen night outs. So they were quite zapped by my request. If I want to work late, what happens? And they said, what time? I said, okay, you'll probably need the keys or something like that. No automated doors back in the day. So that's what I did right after. I had a very good time. I have referred many, many management professionals to them since. Post that, I went to Asian Paints, had a very good run. I was head of Forest, was my regional winner that year. Had a very good time learning how to sell paints. Asian Paints is a fun training ground. Moved because I got really bored in Orissa. None of my friends and family were in college. So I switched to Marico, which was an FMCG company, still pretty a large brand, makers of Saffola. And some of the cutting edge best practices they were doing back in the day in sales and distribution and marketing. So quite privileged to be there at that time. Again, quite a go-getter. So ended up winning the trophy that year. Kept learning, kept doing things. Here I was head of Telangana state. But then, how FMCG is a very transferable job. And I was planning to settle in at that time. And that took me to IT industry. So moved to Infosys way back, about 3 years. From Infosys, which was an ocean where I got actually slightly bored. I know at that time, by the way, I counted. The fun fact was almost more than 5% or something like that, maybe 10% of our batch was working at Infosys.
Wow.
But I
Wow.
was getting bored.
Hmm.
And because I joined the party late, the company
Which
had
year
moved.
was it, Amit?
I joined in 2004,
Okay.
and I left in 2007 after trying, gave it up, ended up
Okay.
traveling, ended up working in IT, but moved back.
I was there from 2002 to
Yeah,
2007.
yeah, we spoke about that, and long back though. And then I moved to Google. So Google came along. I had a chance to either go to US or UK within IT industry, and I did not want to live outside of India. I had traveled enough by that time to know where I wanted to settle. So it was definitely in India. I love my travel. I can go anywhere, anytime. I've had the privilege of traveling a lot within India and outside, but I never wanted to settle. I was very clear about that. I become homesick 2 weeks into a new country. Max I can stretch is 4 weeks happily. After that, I'm clearly unhappy and miserable. So just too grounded to the roots. Wanted to be in India. So in India, I had two options. I had a IMB senior who was doing a startup in Hyderabad, and Google. So I took Google. It was a wild plunge back in the day because there was hardly any internet user base. And most people did not know Google beyond Google search. Some of us, I was not even using Gmail at that time, any other product for that matter. A lot of that happened later. So this was very early days. Google had just set up its base in India, was experimenting with early stage managerial team. We were sort of like entrepreneurs slash scouts, figuring out where the opportunity was. And that ended up being a very good innings for me because I brought YouTube to India, ended up growing that business, became a thought leader for the first time, representing India for a function. would go on to head APAC levels, couple of functions for YouTube. All that happened because it was a crazy ride. Then, after growing the business to about $100 million from scratch, got bored of all the bureaucracy that comes with large businesses, large teams. And I realized the earlier stage was more fun.
Hmm.
So I decided to jump out and do my own thing.
So you started your own thing in 2011?
No, I left in 2014. So it'll be a decade
Okay.
this.
Okay, wow. So you were with Google for 7 years.
Roughly about 7.5, 8, something like that.
Okay, okay. Tell us more about your experience of leading YouTube in India. What was that like?
I have a fun story. I have many fun stories because you don't build a brand like that without lots of good stories. But the funnest story is that how Google did not want to launch YouTube in India. They were planning to do a very soft launch. There was a guy working on it before me. A couple of people, they said, okay, we'll do a couple of deals and that's about it. And because I had traveled enough at that time in India and abroad, I knew the potential of NRI audience. I knew the potential of what. And we used to talk about it back in the day. I don't know whether you guys heard this from some place, that there are only two religions in India. One is called cricket, okay, and the other is called movies or cinema or Bollywood, whichever part of the country you come from. And both are very video heavy products. So I intuitively saw YouTube as the way for people like me who are traveling a lot for work and things like that. So I had quite a tough negotiation. My boss threw me out like, no chance, Amit. India has no edge, no 3G, 4G, pata nahi kab aayega. Nobody has Wi-Fi. There's no smartphones. There's no iPhones. It just doesn't make sense from device and bandwidth perspective. And this is a heavy product. And he was right. And I said, let me start because all of this will change. Bet on the future. If nothing else, we have a ready-made NRI demand all over the world. He said, do your nothing. It won't work. I said, allow me to do it alongside other things. He said, there are important products like Google Search, Google Maps, do those. I said, I will do those. I'm not saying no. So then, like typical Google, more democratic. So he's escalated this to the VP. This is a Frenchman called Emmanuel Socket. Brilliant guy, amazing guy. And him and I having the same conversation all over again. The devices, the bandwidth, why it doesn't make sense, why there are other properties. So, but he saw my determination around it and he allowed me 5% of my time on YouTube. Which is roughly about 2 hours a week you're officially allowed to work on YouTube. And out of that came 1,000 crore business.
Wow.
So this is where this is not the first time in my corporate life, but I was quite a rebel. But this is one glorious innings where I was a rebel.
Very nice. So tell us some of the initial strategies that you used to go to, what did you do in those 2 hours a week to go on to make this 1,000 crore business?
I just started meeting people. There were a couple of deals who had already signed up. There's a self-sign-up channel. There were a couple of people who were trying to do initial stage couple of sign-ups. So I just started meeting people. There were 4 or 5 deals that had been signed up in the day. And none of them have been operationalized properly. So I just started meeting, what are you planning to do on YouTube? Started sharing what we were doing elsewhere. And at that time, we were asked to do a pitch deck. So there was a presentation we were supposed to take to potential partners, explain to them about the YouTube opportunity, the partnership framework. I took that out for a couple of people. Then I realized in India, ye to nahi chalega. Nobody buys decks. And I know Mix is here. He loves decks as part of his job, right? But I realized India mein nahi chalta. So I had a great license from Google to walk into any room because Google was a power brand already, at least within the media industry. A lot of people were either afraid or excited about Google, and that would open up doors. And then I just had to go talk about who are we working with and what's the vision that they have about internet. I let them talk about their vision. I said, why do you want to do it on your own when there is a very democratic partnership model available? Learn with us at zero. And out of that came a gazillion amount of partnerships. I must have done like 100 partnerships back in the day. These are like big companies like Z, Sony, Star, T-Series, Sarekama. So we ended up building Netflix plus quality content, but free to the user. Because at that point in time, we had literally tens of thousands of full-length movies. All the top five broadcasters were uploading their shows real time, not with any time lag. All the music that you can think. IPL like sports catch up. Cricket, like, it doesn't get more cream than that. Maybe some delay, but it was still happening at a very, very rapid rate. And the business just exploded. So I think the first couple of million was hard, where I am having very limited time to do all this. But then we just exploded from. So, and I kept asking people, what is your vision and why don't you do with us in such a democratic plan? And that is one line that did wonders for me in terms of signing up partnerships. And finally, when we reached about 10 or 11 million, I started getting more headcount. I was the first full-time guy for YouTube eventually.
Wow.
And we created a whole.
So you were.
So you got to full time from 5%, or were there transitional
Yeah.
points?
I got to full-time. Like, I think I was somewhere between 2 to 10 million. So we grew very fast from 0 to 2, 2 to 11. I think somewhere by the time it was 11, I was 100%.
I remember having a big iTunes music library that I used to maintain myself back in 2007, 2008. And somehow I realized, yes, all songs are on YouTube. Why am I maintaining my own library? I can just go to YouTube and do the playlist. So you were responsible for this. Like, I finally gave up on my iTunes library, still on some old hard disk somewhere, because now I could find all my songs that I wanted to listen to on YouTube. And so very impressive, Amit. And I think you changed the game by, instead of telling your story, asking the brand to tell their story. And that's what I'm hearing. Like, that was the game changer.
Yep. That really worked. And we were the first one to go regional because no other country is that diverse on languages. So I built up the first 8 languages, right from Bhojpuri to Tamil, Telugu, all of that.
Very nice.
We took time doing that. I think we were signing up deals which had like million tracks in Bhojpuri. Nobody knew
Wow.
there were recorded songs in Bhojpuri.
Yeah, Amit, I have to tell you this. Back in 2008 or 2009, I found this Bhojpuri song on YouTube, which was School Se Jab Tum Aati Ho. And I'll try and find that song on YouTube. And I was so happy when I saw that Bhojpuri song, School Se Jab Tum Aati Ho, like a teenage boy and a girl dancing by a river somewhere in Bihar. And you were responsible for that. Unbelievable. Hats off to you,
I
Amit.
was hoping you will have a Bangla example, but I did not know you were in Bhojpuri.
You know, it's just so cute. It's just so cute. Let me see if I can find it. So, tell me about your team size. Like, what was your team size couple of years down the line and then further down?
So towards the end, I was running like 5 micro business units or functions, cumulatively about 600 people, which was huge by YouTube standards. This was also because I was responsible for a lot of operations, back office of YouTube at that time. And you can imagine, like, 600 people is like boring meetings, too much process, versus building a business that was dramatically growing, which is also why I started to get bored. But yeah, for Google standards, it was quite a high number. And when I left, they actually broke the role out into, I think, 5 or 6 different teams.
Let me see if I can present my screen. I want to share this song with you, and I want to thank you for getting this song online. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, school ke time pe, oh my God.
And so thank you, Amit.
कभी न इनकार करना, प्यार भरा दिल न तोड़ना, स्कूल के टेम पे माना गोरी टेम पे, स्कूल के टेम पे.
Yeah, I mean, no, I was just commenting. I never knew Vix had such evolved music tastes. I'm sure. Vix, do you have a car out there you drive in the Bay Area? And do you have loud
Yes, I do.
blaring Bhojpuri songs when you drive through Menlo Park?
I have done that. For the longest time, I used to have a car with the license plate Nerd01. So this is back in 2007. I bought a Toyota Prius. They were really hit in the Silicon Valley at that time. And I used to have Bhojpuri song blaring from it.
When I come in June, I'm going to video you.
Yes.
In your car with a blaring Bhojpuri song going on, and we'll put that up. I bet Amit, do you think
Yeah.
that will get us 1 million subscribers?
If anything can, Bhojpuri can. Trust me on that. They are very hungry for creative covers of their music, and it might just do the trick. I can assure you. I can give you 5 more languages who are very, very viral. So I was on my first trip to Northeast late last week, and I learned how viral is Assamese music as well. So some of the pockets are insanely viral. We just don't know because we consume our own content all the time. But you just go there and you learn, oh my God, it blows you out.
So Amit, you still left pretty early in the journey of Google. Like if we look at Google from 2007 to 2014, obviously it was a rocket ship and it flew very high, very far. But from 2014 to 2024, it has had another very successful rise. So how do you feel about leaving at stage one when there was a whole stage two that happened after that?
I'll give you 2 answers. One is people live for name, fame, something like that. Now, as head of YouTube, that comes easy. You get to lunch with Amir Khan, you get to do dinner with Salman, you get to meet Bachchan for coffee, you get to hang out with all the IPL captains, Sachin Tendulkar. These are like gods in our country, right?
Sure.
And so the kind of fame you can imagine.
So you've actually met the gods.
I hung out with them as part of my
Okay,
job.
so I'm in the presence of somebody who hung out with the gods.
I'm Nandigan of Shiva, so मैं नौकर हूँ तुझ. But yeah,
Acha, do you?
I was meeting like the who's who of the fraternity. You also end up changing the impact because YouTube nowhere else. See, this is a time when India was really tiny market for. Okay, now you do such path-breaking stuff. No other product. The VPs of the product area, they come to Google at that time because we were so tiny a country, except for YouTube. Every year they started making a trip, the entire corporate HQ. They would come to see what's next coming. So we made a huge impact, like Three Idiots, for example. We helped Amir Khan discover his fan following in China. That's what's the time. We were discovering models. A lot of my work made to Wall Street Journal. Because of work, there were 2 new product functions created at YouTube headquarters. You don't get to do that country number 30 for any other product area for companies like Google, right? So name, fame, impact sab aa gaya. Now you're doing things, it's reaching a scale where you're not enjoying it anymore. So वो 7-year itch था, क्या था नहीं मालूम, but I had done my innings. I mean, 100 million to a billion would not make me feel better about me. See, I'm a simple guy, I come from humble background, we spoke about it already. My dream salary when I graduated was, will I make 50,000 a month, Indian rupees. Now, I broke that like very early in my career because, you know, we are from IIMs, we get paid at a certain level. उसके बाद मुझे नहीं पता मुझे पैसे का क्या करना है. You know, you buy a house, you buy a second one, how long can you keep buying? Okay? You will still eat your dal roti sabzi, right? You will not start eating gold and silver. At most, you can have gold, silver utensils. Beyond that, kuch nahi chahiye. The only expensive hobby I've had is maybe travel. And that's about it. So when you do enough, you don't need money, fame, then you work for idhar kya hai? What really moves you. And I realized the bureaucracy did not move me. Managing large workforces was not exciting to me. For some people, it might be, and good for them. You got to know what's good for you, right? And I realized I wanted to build businesses fast, do things that impact at scale. I had seen that dream at Google, that I can go and transform the country with my product. Right? We impacted education as an industry. We impacted Bollywood. We impacted sports. We impacted music. We were doing deals with industry bodies around music. There are like 3 or 4 bodies at that time. And I'm striking those deals. Literally thought leader, cutting edge, can be the spokesperson. I ended up launching countries in APAC, Southeast Asia, right from Malaysia to, you know, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore. The whole region is getting launched in front of me because of my team, my work. I'm setting up the base for next stars. We brought YouTube Fan Fest to India, did the first edition of that.
Wow.
And like Shah Rukh Khan fighting for a pass.
Wow. Shah Rukh Khan fighting for a pass.
He's like, my daughter wants to go. You have to give me many. I said, like, we have very limited seats. And we obviously obliged because he's Shah Rukh Khan, right? But imagine that in a country where nobody was doing anything about online video.
Sure. So tell me what happened to these initial problems that people were identifying when you were seeing opportunities. Others at YouTube higher than you were seeing problems. What happened to those problems? What happened to device? What happened to bandwidth? What happened to 3GB nahi hai, 4G kab aayega? What happened to all that?
So, industry is very powerful. People create supply when there's a deficit. So this is the first time I'm doing IPL. There is this arguably a maverick guy called Lalit Modi who's into exile now. So I'll be careful on what I say here, but I quite admire him for what he did in the early years to build the IPL brand. And again, my same pitch, what do you want to do on internet? And their servers were crashing when they were trying to do the tech. And we're like, Google se better nahi milega, to partner kar lo. He said like, okay, fine. I said, what do you want to do? He said, break the internet in India. I said, wo to bahut aasan hai. Bandwidth hai hi nahi. So we're creating like cool concepts like alternate feeds, which are internet only. And it's the first time. Nobody's done it in the world of sports at that time. Now everybody does it. They have their separate camera crews all over. We used to call it the fun feed. So we had our own crew going around, and he gets very excited. And he at that time had a huge fan following on Twitter, this, that. So he would tweet about it. Now, before all that is happening on day one of the match, the first match, okay, we had not done a lot of marketing. Google did not do a lot of marketing back in the day. 5 minutes into it, we are maxed out all the bandwidth we had licensed. Okay. So I remember कि मेरा सारा काम हो गया. I'm the partnerships guy. I did the deal. Now tech is taking over. Tech is reliable. This is Google, right? You trust your tech, your engineers. And I'm actually going somewhere for dinner with my family that evening because I'm like, okay, now I can relax. It was a very, very hectic contract process. So we did that. And I'm standing outside the place where we're supposed to go in for dinner and doing this call on the, road path, Lodi Road somewhere in Delhi. And they're like, okay, we're getting blank screen. So my partner manager tech is saying, I said, okay, what are you doing about it, Varun? And Varun is like, okay, we're giving some messaging. I'm talking to the product. San Bruno is yet to awaken, which is the YouTube headquarters. And we'll figure something out. But can you get us more bandwidth? I said, okay, let me try. So I started ringing emergency lines, figure out an infrastructure team is required. And we got that bandwidth. There was another company, I think it's owned by Tata or something like that, called BitGravity back in the day. They had some license, some bandwidth left that they had with them. The next day or whatever, a couple of days later when we actually plugged in, the matches are still going on, we start getting the screen. And I had a VIP access to all stands in the stadium. So there's a Delhi match happening, Lalit is there, and we're catching up in the stands. And he's like, Amit, what can we do? What are the numbers looking like? Can we grow? How do we double the numbers? I said, please, Baba, I'm going like this. Don't talking about double. If we go 5% more, there is zero bandwidth available in the country now. We have taken all that is available. But things changed. Despite everything, there were lots of scams happening at that time in Manmohan Singh's government. But I think 2G, 3G, 4G, I don't know what all scams were happening. Some of them were telecom scams. But industry got one with supplies. And yes, that always happens. So industry catches up quite quickly wherever there's a demand and shortage of supply. That's never a problem for our country. Lots of entrepreneurial blood. So that did come true, and you kept giving more diversity to content, flavor. Some content doesn't need to be consumed live. So rest of the day, it's okay. And it's okay.
No, I visit India once a year. I remember visiting India during 2007, 2008, and my younger brother would tell me कि भैया घर पे DSL connection लगाना है. I said, why DSL? Why? Because I have to watch this on YouTube. So a lot of the DSL uptake in middle class Indian homes came because now there was this great content available on YouTube. So hats off, Amit, once again.
TV easily. Nowhere else you could watch all cinema easily, across languages, all music easily, and lots of sports we had. Back in the day, right from badminton to boxing to soccer, we licensed literally a lot of content.
Wow. So how much of YouTube is these big licensing deals, and how much of YouTube is guys like us putting up a podcast or somebody doing something out of their bedroom? So what's the mix, or what was the mix that you saw?
See, during my time, a lot of viewership came from content produced of very high quality for broadcast or cinema, those kind of screens, because that was my model. I was chasing the religions of this country, which is cinema slash TV and cricket, right? And we first got that in. But we are aware of this opportunity of new age media houses. You would have heard of names like the Viral Fever. I sat with them in their shed office, the first office they had before they became a larger company, or AIB, which was one of the early houses. A lot of people were doing back office animation work. Kids' nursery rhymes became very popular on YouTube. Some of your parents, you know that already. It's also a headache later, getting kids addicted later on. But back in the day, it was massive trends. We were discovering one demographic after the other who could use video for creative use. By the time I brought FanFest to India, which was early 2014, my last year at YouTube, we were clear that we had to incubate. There was a dedicated couple of people working on my team who were working with just the new age creators, creating that ecosystem. We had actually tied up with Whistling Woods at that time to set up a studio space where people can go on a discounted rate or a free something to go and shoot. I don't remember the exact terms now, but the idea was to have a world-class shooting capabilities available to our creators.
Okay, tell us some anecdotes. No, Amit, I'm too curious about this. Tell us some anecdotes about meeting our gods. Tell us some interesting anecdote. Okay, I met this god and this is the kind of tea we had. Some anecdotes that we can take back. We can live vicariously through you, Amit.
Hey, who do you want to hear about? Like Rajnikant's family, Amitabh Bachchan, and
Did you meet Aishwarya Rai?
Katrina Kaif, yes. Aishwarya Rai, no.
Okay.
Deepika Padukone, yes. Saif Ali Khan. Who else?
Tell us some anecdote. Stop dropping the names, but tell us something that happened during those meetings.
So my most fun engagement in movies context is Three Idiots and Amir Khan, because like I said, we discovered a whole geography for them. And you don't know this probably, but China is where subsequent all Amir Khan films make most of their money outside of India.
Wow.
Okay.
No, we don't know.
Yeah.
I heard about it, but I didn't know it was originated. this way.
We had actually done the deal,
Yeah,
and then Reliance came along with the rights, and they clearly wanted no rights to be given to YouTube, so we were kicked out. I'm having this angry call with Vidhu Vinod Chopra. He's avoiding me till the time I'm persistent. So he comes on the call. He said, Amit, aap kya expect karte ho, right? There is money to be made here. They have this clause. So either you talk to them, I wanted to do this, but eventually money rules. So he was nice about it, sweet about it, and I could understand his limitations. So when there was a windowing possibility of what was available, we realized US was not given to us. It was taken by Reliance. So I said, what about rest of the planet? I mean, out of 10 top markets, they marked out, right? That I will not give it to anybody. He said, okay, fine, I'll negotiate for others. And even we did not know that there will be demand in China. It was accidentally discovered. But during the cut to the deal, we had literally done like a lot to do the deal. I had flown down a lot of people from HQ because we were going to do some magical stuff for the movie, which was unique. Never happened, sadly. We were actually dining with them a couple of times at Vidhu Vinod Chopra's house, sometimes in a famous studio there, here and there. All of that happened. And the deal was almost done before it slipped out of our hands. So, but we ended up discovering a whole model. I had tried that model with Tier 2 movie from Tollywood Studios. So there is this star called Siddharth. And he was doing a movie with, I think, Network 18, one of their, I think Studio 18 was the name of the particular company. And that did not work, but it got me Wall Street Journal Press for a new innovative model. So
The innovative model was to put movies on YouTube for free and monetize them using ads
on day one,
on day one and monetize them using advertisements.
I was saying, wherever you're not getting a deal offline, why don't you put it online? Right? What's the loss? Will IP protect it for you? Will geo restrict it for you? And that's how you discover China for Amir Khan. That's when Striker was the name of the movie. That's why it got to the Wall Street Journal, the story of an innovative model. That's how we got to IPL was like seriously. In UK, US, we had like different rights. In India, we had different rights. The rest of the world, we had different rights. So we literally had to do a lot of detailed work back in the day, which looks very normal because now the industry is evolved. But तब ये सब नहीं होता था. And with Shah Rukh Khan, we did a lot actually. We did a Ravan project. The movie didn't do super well, but we did a lot of creative things. This was the first time we were doing gadgets on YouTube. So we hung out with their team on multiple projects actually. During Dawn, they did a co-promo with us later on.
So what I know about God Amir Khan is that he's socially conscious. He wants to make socially conscious movies and so on. When you met him in real life, is that what you also is his real life personality close to his personality that we only get to see from much further apart?
Because this was backdoor, not in front of cameras, I did not see him as conscious. He was reserved, but he was social. Like we literally sat next to each other on negotiation tables, talked. I still have access to his team and his emails. I don't know if he's changed since, but because I don't spam him, it matters in my new avatar. But yeah, so we had like very, very close conversations at that time with all these people. Salman Khan's family, which is his group actually, they do a lot of the negotiations on his behalf. There was some controversy because of which asked him to launch YouTube channel. I mean, he used to be a very controversy-ridden guy back in the day. I said, why don't you have your own channel where you can speak your personal view rather than press coming out to beat you up? And he set up a channel because he was willing to try that out. This was happening at Big Boss set. We're sitting in, his whatever makeup van equivalent of this. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next topic, Amit. How did you prepare for your CAT exams? How did you get into IIM Bangalore? How did you get into the IIMs?
All right, so that's going back now. I think getting into CAT, I have a small story there. So you guys may not know this, but when I was in second year of my graduation, I lost my dad. It was emotionally and financially a very hard time for us. So I was not in the best mental state because my dad was my hero, as it is for most children. And suddenly and it was sudden. It wasn't like he was dealing with something for a long time or suffering. So it was quite a sudden thing that came to us as a family. And it's been so many years, but a parent is a parent, you never get over that. So I was dealing with that and I was cracking my mock cats back in the day. That's what I could afford, the pre-mock cats. But there was a crisis financially as well because towards the end he was sick and we had drained a lot of whatever little money we had. So there was a lot of insecurity in my final year whether I get to finish my college or not. Thanks to my brother's support, God bless him, I was able to do it.
Just to put this in perspective, this was in 1996 and 97. So this is in 96, 97?
That's right.
That we're talking about when you were in college.
St. Stephen's.
Okay.
Yeah.
St. Stephen's in Calcutta?
Then,
No. St. Stephen's.
Oh yeah, St. Stephen's in Delhi. Yeah.
And
then you gave the
when I
CAT
appeared in 97, yes, that was my first attempt. I got a couple of calls, but I was dealing with serious stress. So I mucked up everything literally because I barely had the travel money to travel to interviews. So I decided to take a break, go back to Lucknow. We had a shop. We sell construction materials. Sariya hote na, Sariya angle wo sab. I don't know if you guys have got anything constructed.
Yeah.
So उसमें कभी झाड़ू नहीं लग सकती because झाड़ू टूट जाती. Because we are out of all stock. हमारे यहाँ रोज झाड़ू लगती थी. It was that tragic time. And how do you make money when you have no stocks? So necessity is the mother of invention. Me and my brother, we fought hard, figured something out. Never went to bed hungry, figured out how to bounce back. Took us about a year. In the meantime, I rewrote CAT, got all calls, converted Bangalore, converted plenty of others, decided to join Bangalore. And when I walked into IIM, I had the first term's money and not much else. I had to figure out scholarships and loans to pay for the rest of it. How I got in, I think written was not a problem. I obviously worked hard in my second attempt because I didn't want to make the same mistakes. I was also more sorted, more mature with all the crisis that's going on. As they say, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And my mom was a rock at that time, so that helped me a lot spiritually as well. So quants was my strong point. I had to get ahead, and if some students are watching this or aspiring to get into CAT, English wasn't. Okay, I would not even finish reading all the reading comprehensions, and I would run out of time. So, and that was a worry, but the bigger worry was I was very socially awkward with my English. I had not done enough speaking. So I was grinning when Vikas was just saying that I remember him to be very composed and polished. It happened during preparation of CAT. So I started feeding myself with facts. And I had a very rigorous reading, and I don't know, I kept picking tips from everywhere. I had no access to internet back then, very limited access. So it was just from hearing around other students, what they were trying out. I would read some 7, 8 business magazines cover to cover. Some were weekly, some were fortnightly, some were general news magazines like Think India Today, Outlook, Frontline, Think Business Today, Business India, Business World. So I was reading them cover to cover vociferously. It gave me masala for my GTs and gave me reading speed now. Then I was reading Hindu newspaper cover to cover because they would do a lot of analysis, which is useful for GTs, which is where I would typically lose all my confidence. That, oh my God, how do I survive all this chaos? And some of these GDs would be cacophonous. Bahut shor sharaba hota tha, and I did not know how to make it. And I did not take any paid course for my written. I created my own paid regime where I would do mocks every day, my own mocks, both for quants as well as my whole reading regime I spoke about. But I would then take up a course with career launchers. So I would visit Delhi whenever they were doing a live camp for classes to get the exposure and technique. And they got very excited when they saw my results with the written. And they doubled down on me, saying that, okay, we'll support you whatever we can. Very grateful to Satya and team. They're also IIMB alumni. Still in touch with Satya. So very, very grateful for what they did to me. But it was just the grind. It was just very, very specific stuff, nitty-gritty. And I did not have a formal mentor back in the day, but it was just latching on to anything that came my way and sounded smart. So when you try everything that you know and you do it to your best, I guess even CAT is crackable. So I know the competition has gotten more intense these days. There are probably 10 times more people writing CAT. But I guess you just play to your strength, manage your weaknesses, and you're good. So quants, I would always max, and RC, I started from very low to and started moving up over the year. And GDN interview, thanks to all my reading habits and career launches, it came through. But I know when I arrived, we had this mixer in the first week or first weekend or something. And I looked around people who were like, oh my God, ye main kahan aa gaya? I'm probably the dumbest guy. I was lucky enough to break the CAT, bell the CAT. So I had that feeling that, I'm probably the last ranker or something, because itne stud log bhar gaye the yaar hamare batch mein, if you remember, and like 10x more polished, 10x more knowledgeable, 10x more rank holders. भाई पता नहीं कौन कौन आता था हमारे यहाँ, and you look at these people and you know whom I'm talking about. So सारे ही मेरे से ज़्यादा अच्छे लगते थे. So I was like, यहाँ पे आके रगड़ा करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो फेल हो जाएगा. और relative grading अलग.
Tell us about your schedule. Like, what was your schedule like? Did you put in like 6 months of 8 hours every day? Did you put in like, what did you put in for your first CAT attempt, and what did you put in for your second CAT attempt? For listeners listening in, like, what commitment is needed to build the CAT?
First one, I actually didn't do much. I was just too distraught. There was just too much happening. I actually did not work hard. I don't know how I got the calls, but I did. I think I got some 3 or 4 calls out of, we had like 4 or 5 that year. I think only 4. So I must have got, no, Indore ka bhi call aaya tha, so there were 5. So I got maybe 2 or 3 calls. I did not convert. I was just too distraught. I just screwed up everything. Later on, I think I got call from Indore. They started a batch 1 year later. But by that time, I decided to go to Bangalore already in my second attempt. Second year, I think, besides managing the shop, there was very little time. So I had to make that intense. So I would do roughly about, when I was in Lucknow, which is where my hometown was, the shop was, I would do 2 hours of reading and 2 hours of mocks every day, diligently, day in, day out, mornings, nights. I can slog a lot over long innings. I can run marathons, not physically, but in terms of schedules. Something that helps me in my startup life because startups are also not quick sprints. And that's what helped. When I would go to Delhi for career launches, I would work at least 8 hours a day, all inclusive, plus the career launches classes. So, yes, that's what happened.
So, Amit, tell us about your startup journey starting in 2014. What has been your startup journey like?
Okay, so 2014 was a big year for me because I was walking out and I did not know what it takes to build a startup. It was just a dream. I was excited about 3 or 4 areas. I did not literally plan my innings. In hindsight, that was a silly thing, but it was fun. It made it more adventurous. I had my first accidental startup. I started getting a lot of speaking gigs. I spoke in France, I spoke in US, I spoke in literally like Australia, parts of Asia. And out of that came people who knew that I was available. I'd left Google and figuring out what to do. And they started approaching me that can I help them? I became an open networker on LinkedIn because startups have huge networking needs. Me and Chow were discussing a little bit back. So we need a lot of help. So they were reaching out. One of these speaking stints I'm having, and this guy, a startup founder from Hyderabad, he literally bulldozed me into signing up. And that's when I had to set up my company called India Goes Global because I did not want to take contractual liabilities. I was slightly nervous about it. I had not even planned on having an advisory company. But I was enjoying helping people, mentoring people. So I thought, maybe it's got sign, I should try this out. So over the next couple of years, I met probably 3,000 founders. I was dated by a lot of large companies in the telco space, media space, etc. And I did not want to work for large companies because after Google, koi better nahi kar sakta. So that was the challenge. You can go to another emerging Google, it won't be better than Google, it'll be same. And you want to get ahead in life. So big companies, I realized I was getting away from, so it had to be startups. And this advisory model was thrown at me by that guy because had he not forced me to sign up with him, he literally sat with me into submission. And I said, "ठीक है बाबा, मैं तेरी help करूँगा." And he wanted me formally on board. He did not want anything informal. So that forced me to set up a company. Met 3,000 founders, about 120 case studies came out of it. Formally, I contracted only 8. And 8 out of 8 became really successful. About 2,000 crores of wealth created in just 2 years. Now, back in the day, it was a lot of money because this is before G, we're still talking about that. But that's what happened. About my own startup, Okipoki, so I was researching. And finally, Okipoki came into shape similar time, maybe. And I got really excited about education. I was researching health also. I was researching IoT space, a couple of other spaces, and ended up with education. I had headed up YouTube education, so I knew a couple of things. I had seen early stage kids use tech and bad tech, which is not designed for children, so wanted to fix that. And they came together because one of the big gaps is English language and how it impacts your career as a child, as a grown-up. And offline there was very, very poor supply. So most of these kids, they go to school but they don't have access, and their parents don't necessarily speak good English either. So can we use technology to help them at scale was the dream. So early stage being underfed, English being unsolved, and the fact that you learn a language when you're a young kid, any language, right? So all of that began to come together into Okipoki. So I think behind me there is this Okipoki guy. It became very popular. At some stage, my mentor said, don't write 2 boats. 2 startups is too hard. So I shut down India Goes Global at that time and poured myself into Okipoki. We ended up, after many iterations, building the most popular product that this country has seen. India's largest kids app, about 10 million odd downloads over the years. And we cover 11 languages now on the app, which means a Tamil child can get guidance in Tamil to learn how to speak in English. A Bangla child in Bangla, Bhojpuri child in Bhojpuri. चाहे वो स्कूल टाइम पे सीखना चाहता है, क्या सीखना चाहता है, हम सिखा देते हैं. And so I'm very proud of Okipoki also because it ended up being such a massive impact. We get literally hundreds of videos every week, raw footage shot by parents of their own children, talking good stuff into the camera. It just makes me very warmed up about what I started to do. Very, very high impact. My YouTube channel has got now almost 50,000 subscribers, and largely because of these kind of raw footages, where either a parent is speaking into a Zoom call or whether they're shooting their own kid with their phone and sending us a clip, which we just do a before after and set it up.
It is so impressive, Amit, that you went down into what was lacking in your own life. Like you said, कि time khatam ho jata tha, but I won't finish reading the passage to even start answering the reading comprehension questions, and you tapped into that need that you felt to create Oki Poki.
Yeah, so I think I actually use a different line to describe this. I joke about अनपढ़ माँ का बेटा पूरे इंडिया को इंग्लिश बोलना सिखा रहा है, because actually my mom never got a chance to school, not even 1 year. My dad is the one who dropped before high school because of financial reasons. They moved from the village to the city of Lucknow, where they brought us up. Now, I'm growing in an environment where, बनिए की दुकान है, तो अगर पढ़ाई में बच्चा नहीं चलता तो दुकान पे बिठा देते कि चलो कुछ तो करेगा. So most of my cousins, they dropped out early, some in school, some in high school, some in inter, some in college. Yeah, that's the channel we're talking about, right? So lots and lots of, some of this is like, there you go.
Very, very impressive. Let me see if I can play this video.
Sure.
Oki Poki, I would like to extend my thanks to you all, every member of the team, for designing and arranging a program called English to English for children. My daughter really enjoyed it, every bit of it, and she learned a lot as well from how.
We actually have a lot of kids all over the country, not just Bhojpuri, Punjabi, Tamil, Bangla, Hindi, Marathi. So very, very broadly. So all of that.
How many kids have learned English, Amit? What is the impact?
So like I said, I think we have now 10 million plus downloads on the Play Store. So a lot of them have learned. In terms of videos, I think every week we get like a couple of hundred videos from parents. So that library is small only because I don't have a large team to edit them and put them up, because some of those videos are very long or very tardy. We have to cut out the bad footages. These are very raw videos. The max we can do is edit them. So that's the level of impact. I think we have close to about 2,500 or maybe 3,000 videos on YouTube already.
Very impressive, Amit. When I meet with my Chinese friends, I tell them the only reason India will do better than China is because we speak English. And today I'm speaking to someone, Amit, who's actually making India speak English. So hats off, Amit.
So we had to invent a lot of things, part of AI, part of speech technology, those areas, and crack the vernacular market. I think the insights were very simple. When you build a child-friendly, self-learn product, children are in general smart, but that's true for children who've had a device for many years. Okay? For a new first time on a device, if their first app is Oki Poki, is it simple enough was a challenge on design? We fixed that. There was no vernacular content for children, except for rhymes, which was also mostly English and some Hindi. There was no interactive content when we started. So we literally had to invent the whole blue book of what are the best practices for a vernacular market. So doing those things has helped us in good stead. I think I heard Mix talk about what part of your YouTube journey helped. So at Google, one of the values we spoke about is, can you focus on the user? And what Eric Schmidt used to tell us, everything else will follow from. So I was building something slightly different for kids, came to this narrower problem of spoken English, fix that, and to be ranked number 1 on Play Store, almost bulk of 2023, till the time we reduced our ad spends, was really massive. We never thought we'd go number 1 in the industry just like that without raising VC money. It's not known for, an angel funded company to be that top of market size of India on Play Store ranked number 1 for as long as we did. But I guess people love our product. They keep referring. I mean, my organic downloads runs into like probably 500,000 a month already, and then keeps growing. So can't thank enough my users and my team. Yes, I still had to learn how to do design thing from scratch. I never designed apps from scratch. I had to learn how to build teams from scratch. That was a big learning curve. You would see a lot of founders crying for talent who are either they cannot afford or they're not available, right? And we had to learn to do that. And we figured out the cultural glue that holds a team together. That's what makes us.
Amit, let's move on to the next topic. Tell us about what's some of the biggest challenge you faced in your life. And let's start with the personal side of things. And I know you shared some challenges you faced with me. I don't know how willing you are to be public about that. But what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your personal life and how did you deal with it?
Sure. So around the time I was launching Hokey Pokey, my personal life was not going very comfortable. I'm single now, separated. It was quite a messy separation, and that blows you out, right? When you've been with somebody for that long, it sort of blows you out. Obviously, you do whatever you do on the personal side, but you're a human being. It impacts you in the deepest way possible. A relationship that has been going on for more than a decade is a lot of years. And because I did not have access to my children, I poured myself into the cause of children. If I cannot access my own kids, can I do something for kids at large? So it's about how you fool yourself into channelizing your energies. You could go into depression mode, you could go into revenge mode, you could go into legal battle mode, or you could create something out of it. I chose the last one because that's how I'm wired. I couldn't choose all three. It's not like it was a real choice for me. I'm just not wired that way. I wouldn't have enjoyed either the legal battle or a vendetta or a hate or a depression. I'm an optimistic guy, so life threw me lemons, and I figured out, can I feed the country at large with lemonade out of it? So that became my inspiration. Can I build a high impact product? And that's what came out of that. What else? I think it took me a long time. I have a massive support system with my friends, with my family, like my side, my brothers, sisters, my nephews, nieces, and they literally carried me through that phase like a little baby because I was very vulnerable. But they're also my backbone, so I'm very, very grateful. I think I'm lucky to have the support that I have. Very blessed.
Yeah, no, Amit, I also went through a very bad divorce and it's still going on. It doesn't seem to end. So thank you for sharing that. I think looking at you, you start YouTube in India, take it to those heights. That's one side of the equation. And on the other side of the equation that the world doesn't get to see is that your personal life is falling apart. Do you think the amount of work you did that have to contribute to the problems in your personal life?
I wouldn't agree with that because you always make choices which balance out whatever the best you can. The only thing that I would agree with is perhaps as a startup, it's slightly harder. You're working slightly more, but it's not like 24/7. Nobody can humanly work 24/7. So you still balance out things. When this happened, I was spending at least a good 5-6 hours with family, waking hours, not sleeping time, that's separate, in a day. So it was not a time deficit. I've obviously thought a lot about what went wrong. You question yourself, you challenge yourself, you try to fix things, you try to negotiate, argue it out. And I think there were other reasons, larger reasons that happened beyond control, mistakes made. Obviously, each side can blame the other one, but I don't blame it on work-life balance because I knew I gave it all I got because I'm still quite obsessed about my kids, and it hurts that I don't have access. But I also can't. So there's this theory of locus of control, remember, that we read about. Beyond a point when you cannot control outcomes, you just focus on what you can control, right? So I had a choice to make. So one of element of this is, you see, I poured into a kid's cause, trying to make life better for kids at large. Then there are other things. I developed a spiritual side of me. I've done Char Dham twice in the last couple of years post-COVID. I've done Jyotirlinga tour, did all 12, did more than 20 plus Shakti beats, just back from Kamakhya. Oh my God, what a blissful territory. So I started discovering that side of me. Out of that also came my book. We'll probably talk about that in a bit. But that's a new part of me I'm discovering at this stage of my life. It also opened me up to do more time, because when you're less caught up with domestic stuff, so can I do good at large? I have an insane supply of startups who write to me, literally about 30 per month on an average. And I got chances to spend time with those guys, helping them out in my own small way. A few angel investments came out of that. At least one of them has gone on to become like a multifold company, unicorn status in fintech. So it did allow.
I can see the pain in your eyes, Amit, when you talk about your children. And you being able to talk about it gives me an opportunity to talk about it. I went from being the world's best father, words of my wife, to being the world's worst father, and the only difference was that she had filed for a divorce. So, and uh, and kids often are end up being chess pieces in a divorce, and yeah, those are some of the worst times when you don't get to see your kid. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and all I can say is that yeah, that I couldn't have understood the pain if I didn't go through. But I remember once my girlfriend at that time coming to my room and saying, "Why are you crying so much?" Because I was literally crying like a dog had been run over by a truck, like that kind of it was just uncontrollable. So I think losing access to your kids really does something to a human, which is bad. And unfortunately, our society has, for good reasons, I think women have been oppressed for a long time, and society has just a built-in bias towards women, and somehow it ends up hurting dads very badly. So thank you for sharing that. Can you talk a little bit about your spiritual journey? What have you realized in your spiritual journey? How much of it is, like, I've always wondered, how much of the spiritual journey is just death anxiety? We're all running away from death. We all want to find answers to what will happen when I die. Is there something after this? And what have you figured out in your spiritual journey?
Okay, that can be a 10-hour answer,
Yes.
but I'll try to take only a couple of minutes to summarize. So around the time when this happened in my life, my niece, she invited me to a discourse on Ramcharitmanas. There is a saint in Gujarat called Murari Babu, and he does this since I don't know how many decades, probably 50 years now. And I started listening to him, and these are our own historical epic figures, people who've lived in this country, walked this planet. You can actually go verify. Me being a travelaholic, I've actually traveled the whole of Rama's life, right from Ayodhya all the way to Sri Lanka, and almost everything else in between, like Chitrakoot, Panchve, Rameshwaram, several other places in between, like Shungu Airport, all of that, because it was important for me to find out about this. I'd always been curious about Ram. In general, my travel helped because I enjoy my travel anyways, and I just directed my travel to this direction. And over the years, I've done all of this. Um, the second part was I have two sisters. One of them took me to a Jyotirling. My brother took me to another one, and these are magnetic places, massive energy. It makes you feel so good if you just sit there and do nothing. Even then, it makes you feel so good. You don't have to pray, you don't have to chant. These are very, very powerful energy centers. And I've always been a little bit spiritual. So even in St. Stephen, I would go sit in the chapel. I had at St. Stephen's another Sardar friend of mine. So I would go to Golden Temple or something equivalent, etc. But because a time that freed up, now I had more money, so I could travel. I could afford these trips more often than not. So I started driving around, I started flying around, doing all these trips. So a little bit of travel journey. I got really excited about those two places, Jyotirlingas. There are 12 of them. So right from Kedarnath to Rameshwaram, which is northmost and southmost, and another 10 in between. Traveled to all. Really had a very, very beautiful run. And these are spiritual journeys. So because you're going there with a spiritual intention, just to be in that magnetic field of that place. evolves you from within. And the more serious your intent of either discovering yourself, asking for a blessing, evolving yourself, the more that energy works. Okay? Which is why a lot of people go there to ask something from God. Now, because I was in such a mental mess, I wasn't going really to ask, and I'm spiritual anyways. When you're spiritual, you trust God, love God, but you don't ask, you don't go begging all the time. Now, I've gone for inspiration. Once for
You kind of know that he will give on his own
exactly.
whatever is right.
So, and plus, God has been so kind, right? He blessed me with lovely kids, lovely career. Look at where I come from, got a chance to do these things. Where the economy that we grew up in, right? How often can you talk? I've had multiple thousand crore innings. To be able to do just that is like a miracle, right? Look at the times we're living in. I can create a product that goes to 10 million likes. So there's enough to be grateful about if you choose to look at it that way. The glass is also half, right? It's not always half empty. So that travel plus Murari Babu, they started doing their magic. And every time you hear Ram Katha, you discover certain aspects. So the way Murari Bapu does it is he'll tell you the story over a 40-hour lecture spread over 9 days, but he'll only pick up 2 lines. एक चौपाई उठा करके उसी का ऊपर discussion build कर. There's one theme. So bulk of those 40 hours is around that theme. The story probably flows in 2 hours itself. Because Ramayana story is simple. You can tell each other in 5 minutes also. So he does it in more detail, so he takes maybe 2 hours out of 40. The balance 38 is about one thing. So you're developing various aspects. And there is just so much to learn from each character out there. And this happened in our own country, verifiable by historical sources, geographical sources, cultural sources. Like I go to Chitrakoot, and Chitrakoot is a place that believes, just Vrindavan hai, they believe Krishna never went from Vrindavan. Chitrakoot is a place where Ram never went from, apparently, to those people. The town is maybe 3 lakhs population, but around Diwali, 50 lakh people would come to Chitrakoot. There is a mountain there, and they would just do parikrama because they believe Ram said he will be here in the Sukshma Roop forever. And those who do parikrama is like them doing my parikrama, and they'll get whatever they want. So there are these people from all walks of life, including tribals, right, who would come, and I'm getting goosebumps when I'm recalling this because
I'm actually getting goosebumps right now. I was going to share the same thing. Yeah.
So people, I went like 3 months ago, right, this Diwali, and I'm seeing all this. I'm like, कोई नंगे पैर अपने घर से चल के आ रहा है, 5 दिन पैदल चल के आ रहा है. Some people cannot afford a hotel. They're sleeping on the road. They're cooking on the road. They're just sleeping there. And there are places where Ram has taken a bath. He's gone to some ashram. There's an ashram there. And all that history is there for you to see. And I believe history you can still lie because the winner writes the history. But geography and cultural practices don't lie. What's happening after thousands of years with 50 lakh people, you can't fool 50 lakh people just like that, right? And it's isolated. Like till the time I read about it, I was not even aware there's something like this. But when I go there and you see, then you feel it in you. And that changes. And there's things about Kashi that you learn, there are things about Kedarnath that you learn, Badrinath that you learn. And when you see these things, I can talk about visions, and this will give a very different turn to this talk. But I've actually been to Badrinath and seen visions. Okay? And you can call it, you're in that frame of mind, your mind is playing tricks on you or whatever it is. Or you can believe the saints who say this is the place where gods come all the time. They hang here, this is their hangout zone. And you can put 2 and 2 together, and or not. There are enough miracles out there that you discover for which we still don't have a logical explanation except for belief. So some you choose to believe, some you don't, because belief is a very, very personal choice. For somebody who plays only Shiva, for somebody who plays only Ram, I'm fairly, polygamous that way. I can worship all sorts of gods. I've been to a mosque, I've been to Gurudwara, I've been to many places. But yeah, because by birth I'm Hindu, a lot of my sanskars are Hindu, so I traveled more of those places, less of churches. I've done enough cathedrals. I guess the second most I would have done is either Buddhism or Sikhism. But I continue to explore. And it's beautiful when it strikes within you that there is life beyond you. how we don't go to rest in peace, how we evolve to the next life, and that's very powerful. I'm an avid reader, Vikas. I'm just holding you back for a second, and I got really enamored by a lot of her history. So, in the last 1,000 years, whatever happened in this country, I have probably 50 books about that. I've not read all of them before you start asking me, but I've read probably a dozen of those, and I have flavors. I get enamored by Maharana Pratap. I go visit where he was coronated, places where nobody sees. People know Chetak and Haldigati, and that's about it. But I've actually seen his armor with my own eyes, where they were hiding their treasure. वो गुफा आज भी है, and it's been developed into now a tourist spot. A very tiny one. It's offbeat, so you literally have to be nosy to get there. Keep going, asking around. Maps don't take you there. So not only Ram, but also other.
So I apologize for asking this question, but it comes with all respect. See, I left country at the age of 21 or 22, and even my first part of my life, it was economically very challenging. So I never had time to explore anything. It was like you gotta do anything to put food on the table, go to college, get a job, and then I ended up leaving the country. So I don't even know if is Ram a fictional story or is it a real historical character that was there. So what's your opinion about that?
I'm fairly convinced by, like I said, history is open to interpretations. A lot of our history got destroyed when Nalanda Library got burnt. A lot of our saints were murdered. A lot of our, scientists of the day were murdered, put behind bars. Our education system was destroyed. And Britishers rewrote history. Actually, Mughals did not. There's a lot of Hindu-Muslim that's happening these days, but Britishers were the one who rewrote a lot of our history, including fake Aryan invasion theories, for which there is no evidence. I actually have read those books, which talk about why there is no evidence of Aryan invasion theory. They were busy dividing India and they succeeded. Like how? And that was the only way they could rule, because they came in with like 10,000 people to rule a country that was this large. So they had to divide and rule. That was their strategy. It made sense. And they won. But now things are getting right. And my personal theory is what I just said. History can be lied, but geography of a place is a hard fact. A mountain, a river, a dried river, a cave, which exists, you cannot artificially create everything. Similarly, local cultural practices don't lie. Do you know in India they would overfeed you, but they will not throw away a morsel of food? You know where that comes from? खाना बचा फेंक नहीं सकते. Like in the West, you throw it all the time, surplus food, right? India में क्यों नहीं फेंकते? Because there was an episode with Britishers time. We talk about indigo की खेती, right? So they were forcing people to do नील की खेती, and there was a massive food shortage called Bengal famines, and that was the brutal massacre. कोविड में कोई इतना नहीं मरा, उस समय करोड़ों मरे थे at that population base, because there was a food shortage. Because of which we had to teach people our own spiritual way that खाने में भगवान का वास होता है, अन्नपूर्णा कोई देवी होती है, खाना आप वेस्ट नहीं कर सकते, किसी और को दे दो या खुद खा लो. And which is why some of us are fat because of overeating, because of that, now that we have surplus of food. But some of this comes because of historical reasons. Now, when you look at geopolitics, when you look at geography, when you look at cultural practices, they don't lie, right? Why do a lot of Hindus, when you go to traditional areas, will do water around the thali? नीचे बैठ के खाते थे, नीचे खाने के स्मेल से कीड़े आ सकते. To avoid that, you build a water boundary, and you worship water as a god, because water is literally protecting you from insects. It's hygienic that way. It's simple, and therefore water is God, right? So a lot of that came about. Now, Lord Ram, like I said, specific to your question, I've literally traveled length and breadth of this country, all the way to Sri Lanka, and seen places with my own eyes where there is enough evidence to my belief. Now, you may choose not to believe, somebody else might, but I believe. And belief is a very personal thing. Same thing with Krishna. I've been to probably more places than most of my batch, okay? In Mathura, Vrindavan area, into Dwarka area, many times, including place where he was, where he died, lost his life. I have not had a chance to go under the water to see Dwarka. But how do you explain all of this being written? that Dwarka was submerged and it actually exists. They've discovered it now. How do you explain that Saraswati is, worshipped as a river, as a goddess of education, and there is no place in the British history that they wrote? Because we were a Saraswati Valley civilization. Okay, Saraswati vanished because of geopolitical things that happened at that time. Not geopolitical, sorry, geographical reasons, the tectonic shifts that happened that time. Yamuna changed its course and became Ganga, right? And they saw Indus and they called it Indus Valley, right? But we have evidences now because of satellite imagery. If you want those books, I'll give you access, because I'm very curious about that at this stage of my life. And I read all of this. I visited all of this. I've been to several Indus Valley civilization sites, including the world's largest port at that time called Lotha, which is, by the way, in Gujarat, in case you did not know. So a lot of that, which is unexplained, is now being challenged now that we have a whole new group of historians from last 40, 50 years. And there is enough evidence that anybody can go and personally verify. Yes, some of it will still borderline to belief, because you can always argue both ways. The coin may head or tail, don't know.
Yes.
And I choose
Yes.
to believe in the theory that geography cannot be lied. You cannot create a river, or
Yes,
even
I
the
agree.
river of an extinct river, and cultural practices cannot lie. And therefore,
Yes.
that can be used to justify historical.
And not just
narrative
that,
and
even astrophysics also has been kind of supportive in terms of how the scriptures describe the star patterns at the time of specific events, and then when you calculate back,
yeah,
they are kind of aligned to the timelines that the scriptures are.
Yes.
yes. And Miggs is in London, right? So try visiting the museum in London. It has so many of our scriptures there still. Next time I'm going, I'm definitely visiting. I've heard so much about that museum, where a lot of our artifacts, a lot of our literature is kept there, right? There was one more thing I was about to say.
No, that's okay.
This,
But, I mean, just
sorry.
one thing I
Just
just
come
want
to
to add while we are on this topic. My personal belief is that when you are able to visit any of these Jyotirlingas and peaks and so on, it's because God has actually allowed you to come. Right? A lot of people believe that. And the fact
Yes.
that you have been able to visit
Yes,
so many
that's
of
Yeah.
them really means you are blessed.
Yeah. Amit,
Yeah. Thank you. One more thing I was about to say, Vikas. Sorry. So now we were Sone ki Chidiya, right? We were ruling. We were the largest economy on this planet. Somebody came, geographically divided us, economically and socially divided us, politically divided us, took away a lot of our wealth, right? And like I said, I blame Britishers more than Mughals in my version of what I interpret, because Mughals actually stayed here, they enjoyed it, but they kept it inside the geography for a lot of times. Some invaders did not, like Ghazni, etc., they took it out. Nadir Shah took it out, but a lot of Mughals did not. From a wealth perspective, there are other things that they did that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a lot of work that happened in Shivaji's time that I'm studying. I went to Assam, so a home tribe which never lost to Mughals any war, what they have done in the region. I'm beginning to study some of that. And a lot of science we had, can you imagine like how turmeric is patented in US, how basil is patented in US for medicinal uses, all of that. If you go back, a lot of people got their inspiration from Mahabharata about their weapons, nuclear weapons, right? And I totally believe the world has come a full circle. India is emerging as a top economy. Okay, we're still talking as IIM Ke Baad, so we have to bring in some macro picture, right? The amount of innovation that's happening at a local level when I travel around basic supply chains of food, education, health is, oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps when I think about it. Because I travel length and breadth of this country. I travel a lot actually. If you remember, I told you that I'm taking at least 12 short holidays a year now, sometimes even more. Usually these are 2-3 day trips, but in different directions, and I go wherever. And I'm seeing this in action.
yes.
So,
Yes, we
you
did, yeah.
remember we had this course on Indian society in first year, term 1 or 2. Yeah, yeah. And he speaks about this whole India. There was an author, V.S. Naipaul, used to talk about. And he talked about how India is now changed from dark continent, an area of darkness, to million mutinies now. I totally believe million mutinies now is visible to me. With internet, there's a creator economy that's coming. You can sit in a village and be a millionaire due to internet, right? You can actually create products that are being consumed globally, right? And we have cracked it, right? Indian talent is going out and being CEOs, founders of a lot of these unicorns globally, in Europe, in US, elsewhere in Asia, and in India. Tatas are going out and buying companies in Europe and US, and they're not. So Reliance is also doing that. So I totally believe we have an opportunity that's coming up in the next 10 years where the growth can be even more explosive. We've never had a more congruent time for all macro pictures to begin to fall in place. From where I see internet as an enabler of cross geographical businesses, right? Political leadership, which is very visionary, stable for last 10 years, not scam stable, but actually they're announcing new policies one after the other. And wherever industry is not coming in, they are inventing it. Whether it's the Aadhaar ecosystem, whether it's the UPI ecosystem, they're inventing it. And building literally the new blue book, whether it's the road infra that's being built in this country, the energy infra that's being built in this country, the renewable energy that's being built in this country, the waste management is being built. If there was ever an era of innovation, this is now. And it's creating such massive opportunities. And I totally hope that some of the people watching this will go and change their own industries their own way, because there's never a better time. Today, VC money, private equity money is dying to be poured into India. If there was ever a belief in the country, it is now. We've heard so many things, but people are actually able to raise funds for India and not for US in the last 12 to 18 months. So all of that is creating a massive opportunity. So
I wanted to talk to you more about your spiritual journey. And you said that when you visited these Jyotirlingas, you felt an energy. What's your opinion about, and again, it comes with all due respect, like what's your opinion about this higher power? Is there a higher power, or is life just that we all dealing with our death anxieties and trying to find meaning in an otherwise very infinitesimally small, meaningless life? Just the way an ant is to me, an ant on the floor, I am to the universe. I don't care if the ant lives or dies, and the ant can have a great fictional story in its mind about its greater purpose and how its next life. And proportionally, I am the same size with the universe. So could you talk a little bit more about this higher power? Like, how do you distinguish it as it's real and not just your mind trying to make sense out of your infinitesimally small, meaningless existence in this vast universe?
Sure. Depends on how you look at it. I think there are various ways to look at it. That universe is large and I am infinitesimally small, and that's okay too. But there's also Aham Brahmasmi, that the universe is inside of me. There's also multiverse, how our scriptures talk about that there's not one universe but several, right? And it's up to you what you take. Okay. I think you do need a spiritual guru to realize a lot of this. Some of us are discovering our own way till we connect the dots our own way. And sometimes a guru will evolve that faster and in a more focused manner. So that's what I would advise, because a lot of this is science that we don't understand. Okay, science about laws that have not been written about because a lot of those books got burned, a lot of that knowledge got lost, and we are sort of reinventing the wheel, and it takes longer to reinvent than to just leverage. And these spiritual gurus do exist. You just got to work hard at finding one, and each one of us will find their own. It could come from a religious angle or not. It could come from somebody who's just doing practice. There's enough now being written about a lot of spiritual practices across the country. The fun fact is the concept of God, the concept of a superpower is very, very pervasive across religions, across geographies. Without going into who started it first or not, somebody claims Sanatan Dharma started it. For me, that's a meaningless debate. because what's true for you is true for everybody. Whether they discover it from you or not doesn't matter, because both can coexist, right? And I feel very connected. So when I go to these spiritual places, or sometimes I don't, I'm sitting in my own house doing some chant or some prayer, and I connect with my inner self sometimes. The energy it unlocks you is miraculous. Okay, so there is a universal ether that we're a part of, whether you like it or not. How can your flight plans change tomorrow without you doing anything about it? So there are variables beyond your control. How do you define that? Right? How do you define nature at large? Who created this river to flow here, this mountain to come up here? So there are explanations scientifically, but they stop beyond a certain point and they go gray, right? So it doesn't matter what you call it: Allah, Jesus, God, Ram, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Everybody will believe their own way. But being spiritual, I think it helps me trust that. I was in school when I wrote an essay about this, and what I wrote, I still believe in that. So I don't know why I remember, but I do. And I wrote about God. Concept of God is like an emotional crutch. Okay, it works like a lighthouse when we're not sure, which is dharma, doing right thing, right? It's also when we're going through hard times. We know things will be eventually all right. We need somebody to reassure us of that. And people do it in their own ways, across religions. Even within Sanatan, there is like a lot of length and breadth. You'll find different practices, right? People can do it with a temple at home. People can do it with nature. People can do it with plants. Like a lot of people play Tulsi or Shaligram, the stone. Like people will figure a way out. But I have not found people who don't. Also, what I've realized is all of us are in our 40s, right? On this batch, at least. I don't know about all our viewers, but that is a stage. Somewhere either in your 30s or in 40s, you go to some form of midlife crisis where you're trying to evolve. You know enough to be an expert at something, and you know enough to know that, oh my God, I don't know so much about something. And that creates some sort of midlife crisis. Whether you're choosing a lifestyle entrepreneurship or a passion play, a corporate innings that, oh, I'll be the CEO of this company, whatever, and you start chasing some goals, right? And that's the time when some of this begins to evolve. Also, what happens to some of us is our kids are growing up at this age. Our parents are getting very, very old. Like when I lost my mom recently, about 8 years ago, very different life, because she was my rock after my dad. And she goes, and again, like for a parent, there's no backfill, right? Nobody else. I mean, I'm blessed with sisters who love me like their child because they're much older to me, but nobody can ever replace a parent. Now, that again turns you back into something deeper. Now, wherever you get your peace or clarity is your God. You know, for some of us, we get zoned out with liquor or drugs of different kinds. Some of us get zoned out with a physical sport or aggressive gymming or running, right? Some of us do just meditations and don't follow any other religious chants or anything else. Some of us do only chants. And I'm okay because you're connecting with yourself and God is within. Don't forget, right? Aham Brahmasmi. So I follow that. I know it's a long-winded answer because one, I'm an expert at this. Candidly, I'm a student. I'm still exploring this. I'm adventuring this. But I've been blessed to hang out with a lot of incredible people like Murari Babu. I've mentioned a couple of them in the book.
Let's talk about your book, Amit. So I heard that you recently wrote a book and you launched it. Tell us more about it. Yeah,
Sure.
Raise a 10x super kid with Ramcharitmanas, a blueprint for every parent and mentor to gift integrated life outcomes to children. Very impressive. Tell us more about it. Yes, Professor Shamal Roy.
And,
Yes,
I must point out
insightful techniques on how to. Let me read that, please.
Right?
Insightful techniques on how to generate organic and authentic morality in ambitious children. And for viewers who don't know, Professor Shamal Roy used to teach us economics, and he used to teach macroeconomics, and I have financially benefited from the knowledge, the macroeconomic knowledge that he gave me in 3 months in a classroom. So really, really wonderful teacher. So tell us about this book, Amit. Tell me, what can I tell my daughter who's 7 years old, and I get her for alternative weekends now, so I'll get her tomorrow morning, and all she wants to do is watch TV, and like everything else is like something that she doesn't want to do, and her dad is making her do. What can I take from that book? What can a father take from that book?
Sure, sure. So the reason this book evolved in me is because when you hear Murari Bapu do these discourses over 1,000 hours, like maybe 50, 60 times into 40 is how much? Like probably like 2,000 plus hours. You get more informed. You start to build your own perspective about things, and you start learning and start to apply some of these things. Now, because one of my values of building my startup is focus on the user and everything else will follow, which means I hang out with a lot of parents, a lot of children. Before this call started, I was actually talking to a parent with a 9-year-old girl who's turning 10 next month, and we were playing along with various concepts. Now, so let's look at our society when we go back. There used to be joint families, came nuclear families, and you specifically are talking about a split family situation, right? Now, in a joint family, life was slightly better because chores were shared. Also, bringing up the child was shared, which means there was this concept of Dada Dadi ki kahaniyan, and people will talk about these stories anyways. And why are these stories being told again and again? Because they inspire with some values. In school, we used to have this book on moral stories. So each of these stories had some moral to it. Because I believe Ram was a historical figure, and because of his karma, the things that he did, he got the status of a god, right? He's worshipped like that. Because imagine, right? If I asked you 5 generations ago, what was your great-great-grandfather's name? Would you even know? Okay. And that's probably like 200 years back. Yeah. Here is a country fighting over a man which was born, somebody saying 14,000 years ago. Okay. Now Ram is from a very elite line. One of his ancestors brought Bhagirath, brought Ganga to the world. Raghu could read, so there was some Raghu. His own dad Dasharath, his kids love and push. But why is Ram so revered? What is the message of his life? Why is he like a god status? Right? Why is he worshipped across countries? In Thailand, the king is called Ram. I mean, what's got Thailand got to do with Ayodhya? Right? Why is such an epic thing that when this Ram Mandir ceremony was happening, it was streamed in 100 countries? And there were like processions in like so many dozens of countries, governments declaring holidays. Why is it so iconic that people are fighting about a temple? When people like you and I don't remember like 200 years ago, what was my ancestry doing? Right? We don't even know names, forget what they were doing. Right? Which part they were, we don't know anything. So this is a magical life. This is a life that has been written about hundreds of versions from various parts. Because one, he traveled the length and the breadth of this country during his Vanavas. Right? So we see that. There's a different narrative where Sita was born. There's a different narrative where, they spend their time in Chitrakoot or Panchwati or where Rameshwaram is, where Lanka is. So you'll find some differences. But by and large, the storyline is the same. Right? And he is Maryada Purushottam. Okay, what is Maryada? Maryada is concept of Dharma, doing the right thing as per Dharma, whatever is righteousness. For me, Dharma is doing right thing, so I call it Maryada is the same thing as Dharma. Purushottam, the best a man can be. Purushottam, right? So, and that's Ram. Now, how do we call him Maryada Purushottam? By just following his life incidents as we are told, right? So as you go into details in this book, I've crystallized 6 principles that every parent, so I've simplified the message. I also run a weekly class for parents, 1 hour every Saturday morning, where I just apply Ramcharitmanas principles to parenting. Okay? And somebody got to deeply encode it and apply to real life. Otherwise, it will remain a story. Right? It is history, story, whatever it is. If I don't apply, it's not usable. It's just a story. And a moral story pada bhul gaya jaake fir bhi utpatang kar rahe ho, of no use. So I chose because I was so enchanted by the story. I was more enamored by the impact it had on me. It probably helped that my dad's Name was Ramavtar, so probably that's one of the reasons I yes. But I went deeper. So I just simplify the principles into 6 topics. So one is the concept of dharma itself. How do you nurture the sense of what's right in your child? Because when you're seeing an addicted child to gadgets, right, is that right? How will your child know what's right or wrong? Or in a single child household, sharing is not very commonly observed because everybody gives it to them. They're the youngest. So how do you cultivate those values of the sense of what's right is getting lost? And because I work with young children a lot, this is the right time to build any foundation of righteousness. Once they grow up, their habits are cast in stone. बाद में आप कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे as a mom dad. Yeah. Second is just talking about patience and perseverance. So this kid, I was talking to Ritvika and her mom, and she was frustrated that she loses her temper. She's like, my brother teases me, I get angry, I cry. And we just did what I call as an excellence installation. I just went ahead and picked out the episode that, when your brother steals away your ribbon, your pencil box, or your ice cream or your chocolate, you get very upset because you lost something you wanted, right? Now, here is a program which is talking about super kids. What is a 10x super kid? Okay, super kid is every parent wants a bacha to be more successful than them. Now, some of these middle class parents say that more successful is not enough, at least 10 times. Okay, because I make only 1 lakh a month and I know that's nothing. So this guy got to make at least 10 lakhs or equivalent in purchasing power parity when they grow up. So for that, how will Ramayana provide you an anchor? And those are the values we begin to talk about. So principles of patience, perseverance. With Ritvika, I was talking about overnight, you're going to be coronated and you don't lose your ice cream. You lose your mom, dad, you have to go away from them. You lose your house, you have to go away from it. You lose all your staff who was serving on you, cooking delicious food for you as the king's son, right, the prince. You lose all your comforts, you lose all your clothes. You're going in hermit's clothes, barefoot. You lose security because now you're out in the jungle defending yourself with wild animals and demons. And that's what you lose gracefully. Because eventually something will set right. And Ram comes back. A lot of people don't know this story. When Ram comes back from Vanavas, he goes to Kaikeyi first. Kaikeyi was the queen who sent him to Vanavas, if you know the story. You know somewhat of Ram? Okay. He comes back to Kaikeyi first and later to Kaushalya, his own mother. Kaikeyi is guilt-ridden. Bharat, her own son, is refused to see Kaikeyi in 14 years. That I don't like you, mom, you're not my mom anymore. So she is guilt-ridden. She lost her husband because of her wish. He got a heart attack and died. He got so much of blame. The whole Ayodhya hates him, right? So she's miserable when Ram comes back. And Ram tells her that it's because of you I became Ram. Had I never had an opportunity to travel the country for 14 long years, I would have been the king here and popular here. And today I got a chance to kill Ravan. Today I got a chance to travel the length and breadth. I built so many alliances across the length and breadth of this country. Now that's one of the reasons why Ram became Ram. Because his impact was pan-India. Right? And that wouldn't be possible without the One West. Right? So he could respect that and he could come back to it. And again, what we're saying is patience and perseverance space. Now in my life as a startup, there'll be ups and downs. You're a startup founder also. Right? If you don't know how to handle down times, how will you ever bounce back? So I teach bounce back parenting because, we're living in times when a child gets only 95% marks and they want to commit suicide or take to drugs. Somebody's going to teach that. Now, where else would you do a comparison like this? In your own life, my own life, we have not gone through a Vanavas. We've lost our entire family, home, security, food, everything in one night. So you get this.
It's very interesting how you related this 9-year-old girl's losing her ice cream and pencil box, and you compared that to Ram going on a 14-year vanvas and still emerging stronger and a lifelong, like a 14,000-year historical figure. That's very, very impressive. I could never make that connection. So that's a very interesting connection. And, it's hard being a single father because you want to get it right, because I do know that what I'm telling her now is going to stick with her for a long time. And how would an NRI father in India, in the US now, whose daughter has no interest in Ramayana, Mahabharata, how can I even get her started in this?
I think change begins from you. So first you go slightly deeper. Maybe just watch some media, a movie on Ramayana, which is easy. The Ramayana serial that came during our times. Maybe just go through that. That's slightly longer than a movie. Or read up a summary or something. This is very easy read, a 6-point framework. So we can start with this. It has a digital version. We don't have an audio version. It's coming out next month, but not yet there. So some of these options are there. Choose whatever you're comfortable with. Most kids enjoy storytelling. Okay, so it's actually quite easy by not preaching but telling them a story, right? And this kid, Ritvika, I asked her mother to recount the story when she goes to bed tonight in more detail. I asked her to study it because I had limited time. So I gave her the context because we partner with the parents to help the child. I cannot do it alone, right? So Ritvika is going to, because she loves drawing, I asked her to sketch out Ram's smiling face when he's going on one path. Okay? Just to ingrain in our head through multi-sensory approach. Okay? How to do this. Now, when you ask a personal question, I'll tell you the same thing. Tell her a story. Make it detailed, make it emotional, make it dramatic to the extent you can. Parents need to learn to be storytellers anyways. Kids love drama. Second is an activity, like drawing together, painting together, coloring together, is very doable. Okay, and if she does get interested, you should have a couple of age-appropriate Ramayana books for her.
So Amit, hearing about you, it's so interesting. Like we could actually make a movie out of your life, but like लोहे की दुकान में बड़े हुए हो, झाड़ू लगा सकते थे लोहे की दुकान में क्योंकि लोहा नहीं था बेचने के लिए. From there, even getting to St. Stephen's is a big achievement. From Lucknow, getting to St. Stephen's itself is a huge achievement. Your life could have been just that, and it would have still been a life of 0.01% Indians. From there, getting to IIM Bangalore, from there, going to Ahmedabad, non-profit, from there, going to Asian Paints, then Mariko, then YouTube, and then Hokey Pokey. First having an advisory organization, and now Hokey Pokey. And you're in your late 40s now, but what's next? What will I hear from Amit when I talk to him 25 years from now, when you're 75? Say we get together and we talk about Amit, how were the last 25 years? And those choices you're making today, right? What you want to do for the next 25 years. So what's next? Is Hokey Pokey is that your next? Like Vikas, I'm happy being the guy who taught English to Indian kids. That itself is just huge.
So I do have a new dream which I'm working on. So I think I was discussing earlier with Chow that earlier a typical tech company would go unicorn from scratch in 5 to 10 years. Now a user base has exploded, the economy has grown in a certain direction. A lot of founders are still solving for basics. Hiring, fundraising, first set of MVPs, or just go-to-market plans with frugal budgets, and they don't know how. What I believe is I've learned enough to share that back, and we can cut short that journey just to 2 to 3 years, from scratch to a unicorn. Now, I want to help 1,000 unicorns blossom in the next years, next 5 years. I don't know about next 25, but I'm beginning to spend a lot of time with first-time founders or failed and second-time trying founders to help them scale faster. I'm trying to stitch up a whole ecosystem of support of virtual accelerators, funding agencies, I don't know where this dream will take me. Currently, it's sort of like a weekend job, spending a couple of hours outside of Okie Pokie. I imagine it'll grow, and I don't know at what stage there will be a trade off. So, I've been doing Okie Pokie for years. It's got a very stable team, leadership team, who's quite sufficient. I'm putting them on a path this year where they become even more sufficient. We have more top leadership coming in to stabilize things and take over. And I imagine sometime during next 5 years, I'll begin to spend more and more time on helping more and more startup unicorns. 1,000 unicorns is roughly about $1 trillion minimum, right? A billion into, and on an average, you'll imagine some will go beyond a billion. And that's roughly about 30% of today's India's GDP. So, can I do that impact? Is the new dream. I'm meditating on that. I'm vibrating on that frequency now. And I'm working with a couple of VCs for their portfolio companies who they want to send their way. A lot of intros are beginning to come in. I've been getting connected to various IITs, IIMs, more IITs, to be honest, than IIMs. I imagine I'll get involved with more and more bodies as I grow because I cannot do this alone. Nothing that magnanimous can be done at that scale alone. So today I'm at the building block stage, and maybe a year from now you'll begin to see more of that in action. I don't know if I'll set up a fund. I don't know that today. I don't know whether I'll set up a formal incubator, accelerator, or just another advisory company again, or a combination of all of these. I do know that the timing is right. It's perfect. I can see it, I can feel it. We try things and escape. I've seen so many startups grow now in front of me with my help or otherwise. I can see that the time is. So that's the new thing that you'll see. And I genuinely don't know 25 years from now. I guess I'll be an old man. I'll be figuring out how to stay in shape, how to be flexible, and I'll not lose my joint flexibility or shit like that. पता है उसका करूँगा. But I imagine I'd still be traveling or writing more books or hanging out with someone.